I want to go back to school. I want to get my degree and become, something substantial. I can't just do some mindless job. I was forced to take a job selling shoes on Madison Avenue. Oh, so humiliating. Friends I'd had at dinner parties, our apartment came in and I waited on them. I mean, do you have any idea what that's like? No, 1 minute you're hosting women and the next you're measuring their shoe size and fitting them. Erica Bishop came into the store. She saw me. Was so embarrassed for me. She slipped out thinking I didn't see her. I saw you, Erica!
And that is a clip from Blue Jasmine, starring an extraordinary performance from Cate Blanchett. Kate, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Simon. Hi.
I hope you're well. I've decided never to drink again.
Yes. Or maybe just don't drink while you take your Xanax.
So you get through an extraordinary, I mean, clearly it's acting, but the amount of booze and tablets you get through in this movie is astonishing.
I know. She's on a terrifying cocktail of Xanax and alcohol. Meanwhile, Jasmine's incredibly emotionally fragile, so it's a combustible mix. So
just explain a bit about Jasmine, where she fits into the story and why she's on this very unhealthy cocktail.
Well, she's probably not unique. I mean, there's a lot of people around the globe who are on a cocktail of things. But she's a woman who's it's fallen from grace, really. She's been living on the Upper East Side. Her husband's a very successful, high-flying man of finance who commits terrible indiscretions a la Bernie Madoff, and she falls from grace, and the social scandal and the collapse of her world means that she has to travel across the country and stay with her adopted sister, a little bit like Blanche leaving Belle Reve and having to go and live with Stella and try and rebuild her life without really having the resources to do so.
You mentioned Blanche Dubois, and people have made this comparison with A Streetcar Named Desire. I understand Woody Allen hadn't seen it, but lots of people are obviously making that connection. What did he say to you? What's the truth of this?
Well, we didn't. We never talked about it. I mean, I'd played Blanche. Liv Ullmann had directed me in a production for the Sydney Theatre Company.
A famous production.
Yeah, and went to New York, and I had assumed when I first read the script that Woody had seen that, but he never made mention of it. And I think it's also because the film doesn't pay off in the same way that Streetcar pays off, and his sort of urban neuroticism is entirely different from that kind of romantic, poetic sensibility in Tennessee Williams' writing. So they're very different enterprises. But the architecture, the initial setup of the of Blue Jasmine has a wonderful echo of Streetcar.
Yeah.
But there's a long line of exploration in American drama. If you think about Long Day's Journey into Night, many female characters and all of Tennessee Williams' heroines who often choose fantasy over reality, like Jasmine does.
She's a fantastically complicated woman.
Yes, to put it mildly. That's very diplomatic. She is. I mean, she's got a lot to hide. And she's been hiding these things from herself, within her marriage. I mean, she's changed her name. She's estranged from her biological beginnings. And also her husband's been having a series of affairs, and his financial misdeeds, all these things that she's turned a blind eye to. I think it's become that sort of lying has become, and evasion, and has become a habit. So, she is a very complicated woman.
When you got the script from, when Woody Allen sent you the script, did you know straight away that this was going to be another? I mean, he's had some fantastic female roles which he's done over the years. And did it hit you straight away that this is just going to be the best? I need to do this.
Yeah. Well, I'd already made the decision as soon as he asked me if I'd read a script, and then I thought, well, be great if I wasn't maybe collecting tickets in one shot, and one back of one shot. It was actually something more substantial.
Yeah.
And that was an understatement, because not only, this is the thing, is you may want to play Hamlet, but if you don't have a great Gertrude and a great Claudius, and you don't have a director who's great with atmosphere, the production doesn't take off. But Woody always casts his films so impeccably and often unusually. And then the world around all of those central characters is always so vibrant and vital and often frequently absurd. So you know that the whole enterprise will lift off. It's not just the chance that you get of playing a great role.
Well, I'll come on to the rest of the cast in just a moment, but he has this famous sort of aloof style as a director who works very fast. Just to explain what it's like to, because you hadn't worked with him until now. What's it like to work for Woody Allen?
There's a lot of sort of talk that goes on around filmmaking, and Woody's not interested in any of that at all. He just wants to do the work, and he has that sort of brutality, I suppose, that comes from his history with stand-up, is that something's funny or it's not, or it's moving or it's not, or it's dead or it's alive. So he'll tell you if it's working, and he'll tell you if it's not working. And if it's working, you move on, and if it's not working, you go again. But I'd heard that he was quite monosyllabic and didn't talk to actors on set, but I just asked him questions, and he answered them. So it sounds very banal, but it was actually quite effective and enjoyable way to work.
Were you nervous about working with him?
Absolutely. I think it's a terrifying thing to work with people that you revere, because, and I think there's a danger there too, is that you can be a bit sacred in the way that you approach working with them, that you're wanting to please them. And I think after day 2, I stopped trying to do that and just got on with the very complicated and interesting job at hand.
And could you tell that he liked what you were doing? He said some fantastic things about you since, but did you know that he loved...
Has he? Oh, well, that's
Yes.
good. No, you're never quite sure whether Woody's pleased or not. And also, you hit the way he talks about his body of work, the way he brutally assesses what are extraordinary films as sort of abject failures. I mean, he's very, very harsh on himself. So I think comparatively, he's very kind to his cast.
I interviewed him once for Bullets Over Broadway, and I was the person who introduced me to him said that he does the radio show, he has 10 million listeners, and Woody Allen said, I won't do the impression. He said, my God, he said, there's more people than have seen all of my movies put together. And all the way through, he had this kind of running trope of the fact that nobody went to see his films anymore.
Well, no, I mean, that's what he says. Maybe he's trying to sort of elicit sympathy from the film-going public.
Thing is, that's not true of Blue Jasmine. The reviews are fantastic, as you know, and your performance is being lauded as one of the best of your career. But you mentioned the other members of the cast. So Alec Baldwin, Sally Hawkins,
Yes.
as your sister, puts in another fantastic performance. Alec Baldwin, who you mentioned as the Bernie Madoff characters, they'd done the Woody Allen thing before, hadn't they? They sort of knew the ropes here. Did they help?
Yes. Look, they were ever. I mean, Sally was a fantastic ally, and fortunately, she and I happened to be in New York just before shooting began, and so we sort of spent time together, sort of talking over the history that existed between the two adopted sisters, the differences and what made them tick. And so all of that kind of getting to know one another really helped. But a lot of the actors on set had worked a lot in theatre, and so were used to sort of putting themselves out there and with a relatively thick skin, and also were really good with blocking the thing and very collaborative. So that was a real pleasure to work with that bunch of people.
And is it true that you and Sally Hawkins were the only actors who had the full script? So you were the only people who really knew the whole story?
I know it's quite an old-fashioned way Woody, or paranoid way that Woody works, that he does he doles out sides rather than the whole thing. But I can understand that. I mean, a lot of people do that now because everything gets leaked. Not onto WikiLeaks. Perhaps a film script isn't as vitally important to international relations as what's going on in Syria. But it's very difficult to keep anything secret. And I, for one, I don't want to know. I mean, why am I here talking to you? One asks, but I don't want to know anything about a film or a play or a novel before I engage with it. I love to be surprised, and I think Woody wants his audiences to just see the thing fresh. And so he gets a bit scared about letting stuff out. So Sally and I were the only two people who got the entire script.
And how do you think Jasmine, I mean, I mentioned the plaudits that your role has had. Where do you think she sits amongst your body of work, Cate? Because you've done some great, fantastic performances, and this is being lauded as one of the best. How does it feel to you?
Oh, look, it's always better than, that people will have something to say about the character you've played rather than just asking what you're wearing, which I suppose you wouldn't ask me on radio anyway.
Well, that was going to be my
Givenchy, by the
final
way, if you're interested. Look, it's great. I mean, I've been primarily working in the theatre. My husband and I have been running the Sydney Theatre Company for the last 5 years, where I've played roles like Richard II and Blanche Dubois, and we've toured to Europe and to America with those things, and it's been immensely rewarding. But it's wonderful to return to making a film or two. And
a film or two. I think you're in about 6 or 7. I've just been looking at all the work you've got coming up, whether it be George Clooney or the live action Cinderella. You're in everything, Cate.
There were little bits and pieces. I mean, I was in the begged Peter Jackson to put me into the Hobbit. For the sake of my children, and I was there for 8 days, and it was a couple of weeks on Monuments Men, which is a cracker of a story. So it's if it fits into the boys' school holidays, and my husband's can spare me, then I'll get to come away. But I've really enjoyed working in the theatre, and in a way, the roles that I've played on stage in the last few years have probably informed. I can only say this in retrospect, the way I ended up playing Blue Jasmine. I mean, you do carry the detritus of those great roles into, whether consciously or not, into a role as challenging as Jasmine, I think.
Cate Blanchett, thank you very much indeed. We appreciate your time with us today.
Thank you.